that actually working?
I'm not
Testing. Testing. Patty, is this working? Patty, is this working? Okay, hello? So you folks don't need me to use a microphone, but I think Terry might, or BCTV. So my name is Steve Conlon, superintendent of schools. I'm in my 6th year, and I want to tell you it continues to be an honor to represent the communities and work on the best for each of our children in our schools, all 3,030. So what we're here for tonight is early phase, beginning rounds conversations about this particular school, Lebanon Elementary Facility. And I'd like to introduce a few folks who are here tonight. We have people who serve on the Facilities and Finance Committee. We have Ron DeLau. Ron is the Assistant Director for Maintenance, Facilities and Maintenance. We have Travis Garland, who is the Board Chair for the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee. We have Kevin Moore, who is the Director of Facilities and Finance. We have Neil Raposa, who is a representative from Civil Consultants. We also have Joanne Potter, who is, Joanne, I just have to say 15 years. That's quite a, she loves it when I mention it. Joanne represents Lebanon on the Facilities and Finance Committee. Estrida Schaefer represents North Berwick on the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee. Denise May, both district, she is the business manager. She goes to the beach. I tell her she's the Duchess of Sand Dollars in the summer. Let's see, is there anybody else that I missed on the Facilities and Finance? Oh, Lynn, thank you. Lynn, oops. See, I did that, didn't I? Lynn, I get you to screwed up on which facility. Lynn Manley representing the town of North Berwick for the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee. So please make sure you have a copy of the agenda so you can kind of follow along with us this evening. The first thing we're going to do is get an opportunity to walk around we're going to take a tour. We're going to start in here. We're going to head out these doors. We're going to go around the back side. Now what I'll tell you is that when Neil, Kevin, and I just took a little jog out here, there was a little bit of black ice. So I'm going to tell you to be extremely careful, okay? That is not part of, this is not like a tour and a fun ride or something like that at the same time. I would suggest if you have a cell phone light, you could probably use that as a flashlight with you, that would be great. We're going to go out back, we're going to have a few things pointed out, then we're going to come in the middle of the building, we're going to go into the classroom areas, nurse's office, secretary, possibly principal's office, cafeteria, serving area, prep area, and then the wing behind us and back onto the stage and back here. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask. If you want to lean over to one of the people who are helping with the tour or to near anybody else, feel free to. Kevin's going to lead the outside tour, and then he and Patty Gilly, who is the principal of both schools, is going to work on the inside tour. The assistant principal for the schools is Heather LaFrance, and I should also mention that we also have here from the board, we have Nancy Newbert, who is the chair of the board this year. Did I miss any other board members that I didn't hit? Norman, did you want to be a board member? I think I'm all set. Okay, so let's, without any ado, we're going to get rolling. So you might want to dress kind of warmly. The curtain is on, so Terry can. Yeah, Denise, I don't want any excuses from you.
Watch out, watch out.
Yeah.
I'm blocking the black ice.
Come on, Neil. Up here with me, my friend. So basically, this is what we call the newer wing of the building, and it was actually constructed 64, and then we occupied it in 66, I believe. But some of the things you can see, I mean, as we go along, I'll try to stop and point them out. It is kind of dark. But some of these areas up here, like the roof, the scuppers here, are for roof drainage. That's a flat roof.
That's just 4 years of moisture.
Watch the black.
Deteriorated the walls below here. It's pretty consistent along every scupper here.
Neil, I can't quite read it back here. Keep going, a little louder.
Yep. So what we have here is we have damage on that wall, consistent throughout this addition. From scuppers directing water down to the ground here, without any way to really direct it away from the building. It's pretty consistent from construction, around this time, but over the life of the building, it deteriorates the wall at the base level here, and that's what's happened on this side.
Now also, these windows here, this side and the back side of this same wing, all these windows and this wall was reconstructed back in 2007, 2008. It used to be the old aluminum framed windows with the 4x4 block walls. I mean, with just a fold out window at the bottom. I mean, that was a construction type back then, very inefficient. So what we decided to do is obviously replace it all with these double hung vinyl windows, new siding, and new insulation in between everything.
That original window wall design came out of the south, like Georgia, and it was dead serious. It was a great design with no weight on roofs down there, and it became very popular because it was cheap, could go up very fast, construction in Maine, perfect for the weather.
Be careful, please, over here again. Yeah. Which truck is that? Again, and as noted in the audit that Neil and his company did, you can see like areas like that with cracking in the foundation. That's from the building moving, settling.
And as you come through this building, this portion of the building in particular, there is some settling on that end of the building, which is really, it becomes a problem when it settles enough so that there's air infiltration into the building. It makes it a very, very inefficient structure. This building is, for the majority, it's just a one-story structure, so it's not really a safety concern. When you say it's a structural issue, it's not really a safety concern at this point, but it's kind of pulling the building apart and making it more of a porous structure than we want to see it. It's the way we design buildings now. You have a continuous building envelope around everything. It's a very efficient structure. More concerned now, obviously, with heating costs and all that.
Sue, watch your step, black ice.
This is not the way we'd ever try to design a building from the ground up now. So now we're kind of chasing it, and we have been for years with this building. So.
Yes,
Is that a concrete wall or is that cinder block?
it's concrete.
Concrete?
Yep.
As we
Maybe
walk,
it's cracking up like that.
as we walk through this way, watch it because this is very slick right in here, and there's a little bit of standing water around this edge.
Stay off to this side of this part of these parking spaces, then kind of get back in towards the building once you get past the bench. Probably the best way around.
You got a light up front there? And again, this, obviously the back section of the wing that we looked at up front, I mean, it's still the same things are happening. We did the same construction with window replacement, issues with the roof drains. So basically, you can see the whole wing itself. It's got some issues that we need to deal with.
When we get inside here, you can really see it's more prominent. you can see how the building is settling off to the side, and some of the cracks are getting to the point where it's letting air and moisture through the building. So, while it's not as evident down here, you can kind of see it in the bottom of the wall. If we get inside, you can see how much that racking really affected it.
Jeff, you want to fill people in on some time ago what happened with the roof structure here?
I'm sure most people might be familiar with the issue we had with this roof back in 2010, 2008, 2010. This was an original flat roof, that and that gym section. Well, obviously, we had some a heavy snow that year, record snows. And we found one night, we got a call that we had some damaged rafters. We found out there's only wood structures inside. There's no trusses, just wood rafters. So eventually, I mean, over time, with that amount of snow, I mean, not being really much support in there, I mean, it did some damage. So what we did is we obviously had to replace that flat roof with this shingled roof, and the flat roof is still currently underneath. So we just built over the top of that one.
And that's one of the problems that arises from having structures that have kind of lived beyond what they were intended. When it was built, the insulation and everything wasn't as efficient as it is now. So over the years, in an attempt to bring the building up to more of an efficient structure, any insulation that was put in that roof now allowed more snow to build up on top of that flat roof. So as those aged and became weaker, they actually had more snow load on top of them, and the snow has actually increased from what it had been in the design loads for the original structure, and it caused those rafters to fail.
Now this wing here, from the gymnasium down through, is what we call the old wing. 1953 construction. As you can see, same things happening on these exterior walls. Again, cement walls, all the way down through. These windows here were replaced the year before I took this position. So 2003, those were all done. Used to be just single pane windows all the way down through. Now obviously you can see we changed it out. We went with double pane insulated windows, but still, you look at the wall structure, there's really no place for insulation. So it's basically all you have is windows.
So, Mr. Moore, key question for you.
Yes, sir.
How does this square footage compare to Hanson?
That is a great question. As I was telling him today, we currently, last year, we spent in fuel, just for here, $23,000 for a 22,000 square foot building. Next door at a 42,000 square foot building, 2-story, 18,000. So that tells you the efficiency difference in this building and its age. In this building, actually, we spend more fuel in this building than we do the Hanson School next door, the Northburg Primary School, or the Vivian Huzzy School. All of those come in lower fuel usage than this school here, and they're all twice the size. So again, as some of you, the footing's a little better out here, and it's going to be kind of hard to see. But if you kind of look down through there, you can see the different height in the pavement. Well, it was paved when I took the position. But in the wintertime, we have an awful problem with heaving here. If you come out in the back here, you'll see, we're going to go by that door and I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. But another month or so, you come over, this will be probably another 2 or 3 inches higher, just because of frost. Yeah. We get a key to get us in. Jason's got a key. Now, back in 2010, what we did was, per requirement in State Fire Marshal Office and another building audit we had done, we installed a sprinkler system just for this end of the building where it's a wood structure down through here. And right underneath here there was a 4,000 gallon underground water storage tank just for the sprinkler system itself. So underneath here was all ledge. So in order to install it, we had to jackhammer out about 8 feet of ledge to get it down below grade. And now what happens is, and in the wintertime, it'll heave right up. And that step right there, that used to be flush with the pavement until we built that up. And the reason we had to build it up is because this heaved so bad that when it would rain, it'd run right back into the doors.
And that was just how long ago?
Just last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah, and we're talking a 6-inch change. Remember, last January was the cold snap, the record cold? There was a 6-inch change in this ground level between last January and last July, and the previous July.
Ready to go in? As you can see right here, just before you go in, you see how we had to taper it down. That all used to be flush all the way up to the entryway.
We're going to be taking a look at the only basement area of the school. If you're faint of heart, stay upstairs. We'll tell you what was down there.
Oh, you?
I don't think it's high.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Really good job of that.
Oh, thank you.
There isn't much room, and it's a steep stairway, but if you're more than welcome down to kind of look at the boiler room, you can kind of see where we've had some damage with the, this is the only area in the building that's below grade, basically the cellar. Everything else is on, flat slab. But if you want to peek down and under, you'll see what the damage from the rain coming in through there did downstairs, kind of deteriorated the columns to kind of support the basement floor. And see what we've had to repair down there. Give you an idea of what we're up against with the age of the building.
Yeah.
So,
Over the years, the moisture is basically deteriorated. The floor here is made up of precast concrete ribs, and over the years, there's been moisture intrusion into those, and it's ruined the reinforcing bar in there and caused that to spall. So it's pretty well shored up under there. If you look under there, they've done extensive work to make sure that's well supported and everything. It's just another item that's not going away, that kind of constantly needs attention.
Can I ask a question? Water comes out of there for like an hour a couple times a day. Where's that water coming from?
that's the backwash cycle on the water filtration system.
And then it gets
Then
pumped out.
drained over into the sump pit over in the next boiler room, and then gets pumped out. Anyone want to see? It's fun.
I would suggest holding on to
Feel
the
free
left
to.
rail since the right rail's broken. So okay, just go along to the left.
Be careful.
Walk down and poke in a couple of classrooms and check out the rest of the school. 5th grade is that end of the hall, and 4th grade is this end. Come this way. Do you want to talk about windows, Mr. Moore?
Yeah, just, as we come around the back of the building, we get to this wing, out back, same exact thing up front, out back. Used to be all single pane windows, and then obviously what we did was replacement of the same windows we put out there. Same features, same inefficiency. I mean, again, you're talking back to 2003, 2004 when they were put in. So you're already at, 14, 15 years old with windows that back then were very efficient, but as the building ages, the efficiency's going away.
And without that insulation, we've had ice dams form, and even last winter ruined an entire class set of books, like hundreds of books, because it leaked in on a weekend because of the ice dam. So,
And one thing we did
Water was the
notice,
best.
in the past years, we've replaced all the carpet that used to be in these classrooms with the VCT tile. Well, now that we've taken all that carpet out, you can notice the difference in the tile when we do our summer maintenance program. We go to strip and we go to wax them, you can see the low spots in the floor. I mean, just,
feel them.
and you can feel them. I'm sure people that have been in the building, and I'll show you one classroom down in the other wing where you can see it actually slope away. So, kind of what we're up against.
Okay. Heather and I share an office, which is also shared with the town. You'll see a curtain with all of their voting equipment and a vault. And you'll just notice like we're really limited in space. So this is the nurse's office and the main office. Come on in. Come on in. Not much privacy. Heather, do you want to stand and just say the main office, and then I'll pull them this way.
Sorry.
And then this is our office and the town. We share. We're going to head right back that way. Yes, there's all kinds of old records in there. Hi. Okay, so we're going to go to the new wing. Oh, actually, I want to go through the kitchen. We'll go through the kitchen on the way back. Oh, sorry, excuse me. So I'm just going to talk about this.
I know they do some cooking here. I don't think they don't shun meals back.
No, we cook in both schools. Yep.
One thing to note as you're walking through here is just when you come around the corner, be careful of the caf tables.
We have no space.
So, and the avocado or salad bar, be careful of that.
And this is also our stage, which we are in the process. I will turn the light on. We are going to be fixing it up so that we could use it, but we do use it for Y care, and sometimes our occupational therapist has to use it because we just are so limited in space. And half of it is also our PE teachers' storage, so it has a lot of stuff on it. No, we did create a teacher's room for them. It's a small room on the other side of the kitchen. Yes.
Careful of the tables.
Watch the tables.
Which one do you want to poke in?
Because the last one on the left. Our IEP special ed meetings here, that speech over there. This is OT. Sometimes it's our school site consultant who does testing here. So, and then our behavior, there's not a lot of privacy. And when we have IEP meetings, we can't use this room. So then those people have to find other places to go. So we share a lot of spaces, very creatively sometimes.
I think she's voicing.
So we're going to go one more classroom, that one, follow Miss Gilly.
You beat us to it.
Look how tall you got coming out.
Showing a couple of classrooms where teachers are from the moisture from the outside and in the multiple places where before.
Feel it?
Oh yeah. See it next summer.
Okay, sir.
They've done a really good job, keeping up with everything that's happening. It just never ends. And so it's one of those situations where it's not, something like that's not going away unless you rehab the entire foundation, which is kind of a cost prohibitive thing in a structure like this.
Okay, I think we're going to head back and just go through the kitchen. We do still cook lunch over here for the 4th and 5th graders every day. And this is the kitchen.
How many students is that?
177. I think I have to look for the exact number, but yeah, just under 200 over here.
Is this kitchen size too small for that many people, or does it just barely make it? Or
Um,
Too small and just barely.
I was going to say it's probably a little bit of both.
Okay.
it's
But as you
quite
can see,
small.
I mean, like the tour we did, the office and nurses area, I mean, they're really insufficient spaces for what
Right.
we should be able to provide for the students, staff, anybody who comes here, so.
Seen houses with kitchens bigger than that. That's true.
So I mean,
Why does the ceiling go?
An
angle.
It's just how it is. I mean, that was the original layout of the ceiling with the original building. I mean, because again, it's a flat roof back in there. So what they did was they just tapered that from the exterior height of the original roof down to that supporting wall there. It's always been like that. So anybody, we can go right back into the gymnasium and start the other part of the presentation.
We've recently been a first-hand look at the school. What I would like to make a quick mention of is that the staff, custodial staff, teachers, custodians, the educational technicians, food service folks, administration, they do a great job of making this school presentable, to making it a warm and friendly and inviting place for kids to come. And you see that we're still in progress with just doing the main painting down the hallway. I kind of like that look better. Yeah. So what's going to happen now is that Tammy's going to give a brief history of the facility. We obviously understand that a school that's been an integral part, that is and continues to be an integral part of the community. You can't capture its entire history, the way people feel about the building, in just a couple of minutes, but she's just going to give a quick overview for some folks who may not be familiar with some of the historical facts.
I think I'm just going to talk. So, I'll try. What if I put the little microphone? Okay. For people that weren't here when we started, I'm Patty Gilly. This is my 3rd year as the principal here in Lebanon, but it's my 35th year working with the students in Lebanon. Looking back on the history of Lebanon Elementary School, construction was authorized by the citizens at a special town meeting in June of 1952. Opened in 1953, this school is the 2nd oldest and the only wooden structure school in our district. Being a 9-classroom school originally, they found that enrollment rapidly increased to 300 students around 1964. They built that additional 4-classroom wing, which we still call the new wing. Originally, LES housed students in grades 1 through 8. Over the years, the configuration of grades has changed. With the opening of the new high school in 1967, 7th and 8th graders began attending the junior high in Berwick. When the Hanson School was built in 1981, grades 5 and 6 moved over from LES to Hanson. As enrollment grew, a 2nd floor was added to Hanson in 1988, and the 3rd and 4th graders made the move over there. In 1995, a new addition was built at Hanson, and at that point we made a huge move. The kindergarten through 2nd grades moved to Hanson to join the 3rd and 4th graders, and the 5th and 6th grades moved back to LES. We've had a lot of back and forth. Eventually, the 6th grade moved to Berwick, and 4th grade made the trek back to LES. That configuration remains in effect today. Hanson School houses grades K to 3 with 303 students, and LES has 4th and 5th grade with 174 students. So our total enrollment is 477 students as of today. One of the challenges we face when considering our buildings is that we are the only schools in the district that have gyms that serve as our cafeterias. That certainly limits our schedules and our flexibility every day. Because of our space limitations, our students and staff walk between the buildings several times a day in all types of weather. We also, as you saw, have many rooms in both buildings that are shared by several teachers, and we have no space to hold meetings that isn't also used to teach students. In spite of the challenges, We work hard to adapt while having minimal impact on student learning, and we will continue to do that. We're thankful for the support of the community.
Very nice, thank you. So coming up, we have Neil Raposa from Civil Consultants. We have a long history of work with civil consultants. What I found to be most interesting is that I can be talking with Kevin about some piece of a facility, and Neil will be present, and he'll say, wait, is that the first door down the hall on the left in that room, or is it? I mean, they know our buildings. They live in our communities. The people who work there live in our communities. They know our facilities. We get great advice from them. So they're very easy for us to reach out to when we need to do facilities reviews, which are fairly frequent. We've already done one on Huzzy Elementary this year. We've done one on North Berwick Elementary. We've done one on, let's see, oh, the middle school. Yeah, we have a phase 3. We've done phases 1 and 2 on the middle school. We're looking at doing a phase 3. So this is just one of the other facilities reviews that we've done. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. As Steve indicated, I'm Neil Raposa with Civil Consultants. Done quite a bit of work with SAD 60 over the years. They approached us to do an evaluation of this school. We were involved, as Kevin described, in the fix when there was the partial roof failure. That we had to come in and bring in the new roof system. So we were already very familiar with the structure itself. But this one was more geared towards, figuring out what the future needs of this structure were going to be, what the physical needs of the structure were going to be, what the efficiency was going to be. So that was what I had in mind when we did our review of this structure this past year. Much of the things we already talked about. They all came up in the review. The inefficiency of the windows, the walls, the heating inefficiency is a really big deal because that's something that only gets worse unless you put a whole lot of money into it. And so I went through and I looked through several different options of when things would need to be maintained and kept up. And what we came up with was a final, a table that kind of went through each different portion of the building. And as we went through it, all of the structure itself, as far as the structure goes and the safety goes, everything was fine. It's a safe structure. It's usable, but the inefficiencies there, they just came up over and over again. The space, as you've seen, all the shared spaces and everything. The energy inefficiencies, everything that kept coming up really kind of led me to the conclusion for my purposes that it was not an efficient building anymore that could be used and kept up and maintained to the level it has been for the past 60 years and bring the school district into the future with that. There's, like Steve had mentioned, a lot of credit needs to go to the staff and the maintenance crew and everybody because they've done an amazing job with a structure that really was only supposed to service a school district for 50 to 60 years. And it's getting beyond that now, and everything that we've talked about was the reason that I kind of came to the conclusion that we need to start looking into a replacement structure or some other option so that we could move forward from this structure, but keep the same school mentality and keep all the ideas that we need to keep flowing, at a more efficient pace, basically. And so I looking into it, I was trying to kind of trying to weigh the history of it versus the future, and I kept coming back to the amount we'd have to do to save the building made it just not a practical solution. So that's why we've tried to come through and present some new options that may be the way to go going forward.
So given that the Facilities and Finance Committee had the opportunity to see the full report and to consider what the options were, it was a fairly, it's a difficult thing to talk about when you talk about an actual school facility. It's more than a building, it's a center of a community, it's a place where children grew up, it's a place where people work their careers. I've been through the closing of a school. I used to be principal at Baxter Elementary in Portland, almost across the street from Chevrolet, and I was there when when Portland decided to close that facility. That was a difficult thing. It's the death of a school. It really is. It's not, I don't take that conversation lightly. I've been a leader and helped in that transition. Very difficult stuff. And I'm also a kid whose father was a principal, and Joanne and I, probably even in the same years, you were a first grader here, helping your mom on some weekends setting up her classroom. My mother was my second grade teacher at 8 Corners. Guess what I was doing on the same weekend she was here? And my father was the principal of the school. That didn't work out well. So I understand small schools and history and communities and being the center of a community. And so I don't take any of this conversation lightly for any of our communities at all. So Neil has presented us with information that says these are some things that need to be addressed. So what I want to reassure the public is that we are continually maintaining the needs and the safety and the hygienic envelope of the schools, all of our schools, so that they have viable learning places. Kevin's going to talk some about that.
Following up on some of Neil's points, as far as you did the walkthrough, you see what we're up against, you see what needs to be done. And like Mr. Connolly said, we're very serious and we're committed to making our buildings as safe and as healthy and structurally sound as they can be. So, just to give you a little feedback on Lebanon Elementary, the things we've done since I've been in this position since 2004. We've replaced the roofs on both wings. We've done a complete, thank you.
We would have been here all night.
Yeah. We've done an HVAC upgrade where we replaced the unit ventilators in each classroom along with the heating boiler, domestic boiler, condensate pumps, condensate tank. We've changed out all 3 fuel tanks down in the basement. We've done a complete lighting upgrade throughout the building, both wings. We've installed a generator for each wing. We've redone a private well out back. We've replaced the water softener system. We've replaced the leach bed and holding tank. We've installed a file sprinkler system. We've replaced all the bathroom fixtures and petitions throughout the building. We've completely removed all the carpet in the building and gone to floor tile. We've done new windows in the old wing and the new wing, along with new siding. We've brand new pavement 2 years ago. We've done an asbestos abatement, and we've upgraded our playground equipment. In total, in the time frame that I've been here, is approximately $800,000 we've invested in the building. So you can see that we do put time and money and are committed to making the building the best it can be. But again, we're kind of at that point where we have to decide if we want to continue on this path or look for other options. Questions?
Is mold ever an issue with all of that water?
No, because what we are required to do, what we call is a air quality and asbestos inspection every 3 months, every 6 months, and annually. So they also do, when they do the asbestos inspection, they also do air quality testing, and we'll have it tested if we need to. And so far, we've never failed an air quality test since I've been here. Yep. Yep.
I don't know if you did this at the beginning, I was a little late, but can you explain the diagram?
That'll be Neil. Any other questions? Yep.
Sorry, the 800,000 that you quoted, that's money invested since you have had that position, is that 2010?
No, 2004 since I've been in this position.
Could you
Yep.
repeat the question, please?
Could you repeat that just a bit louder?
No,
I mean,
I need you to repeat
oh.
it, because you've got the microphone.
the question, I'm sorry, the question was, tell me if I'm correct, is in the time that I've been here, is that $800,000 from 2010 or since 2004? It's 2004. You're welcome.
I'll have to take those back.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I can't hear the audience.
Yes, yes. Okay, so, so some of the steps in the process of getting to a conversation with a community and thinking down the road would be, all right, let's have a site study done on the facility. As Neil has mentioned, we've done the site study, check. Information to the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee, check, we've done that step. Recommendation to the Board of Directors. So the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee agrees with the recommendations from civil consultants, moves that forward to the board. The board has not been asked to take a motion on that yet. It's still exploratory. And sometimes you hear from people, well, as soon as they have a meeting like this, it's a done deal. It's just the way it goes. And what I'd like to say is, we're not even halfway in the process. There are further ways to communicate. I really appreciate DCTV sharing this tonight. I'll be talking with Foster's and Seacoast. And there are several different opportunities we'll have over the next year at least, to continue this conversation. There's more information such as what would a facility cost? What are the specifics? This is rough information tonight. This is just conceptual. So we've got quite a few steps to take. We got to think about the school board needs to take action, come to a decision. Based on that, the taxpayers in all three communities need to step in and have a say at a vote. And then also the State Department, the Department of Education, needs to have a say on any closure or repurposing of a school facility. So we've got quite a ways to go in that process. So one of the things that I put down on the agenda, it says 2049 with a question mark. At the end of this school year, this building will be 65 years old. Am I right? 65. Yeah, sounds good. In 1953, when the building was built, or 66 years old, did anybody probably plan at that time that this would be a building that would be in use for about 100 years in a school system? Because even if the school board said at this point, we want to move forward with a plan, and the public said that, and the State Department said that, we're still talking, that's a 5-year timeline from point A, where we are today, to a point B, to anything that becomes realistic. So we're still talking a 100-year-old facility. Do you think in 1953 that people were standing there saying, that school is going to, 100 years from now, they're going to be loving it. It's going to be living large. I think they might have had some different conversations, like, boy, I'm glad that's done. So they probably went out for dinner. So I would say that one of my jobs that I take very seriously is I view my role as partially being the shepherd of the facilities for the community. And I look at it and think about, how do I put a timeline in place for all of our facilities? And my checkpoint is 30 years. What can we do with facility A, B, or C so that 30 years from now, these are still viable facilities for the community? Noble Middle School, built in 67-ish, something like that. We're going to push forward, hopefully, with phase 3 this year there. Love to have you come over after the completion of that to see that school. We're going to add 30 years lifespan to that facility. Does that mean a boiler won't need to be replaced or something like that? Of course it doesn't. But structurally, that facility will be sound, will be positioned for learning in the 21st century. This school is not positioned for the learning in the 21st century. It's not positioned for what's the 30-year plan for this school. That's why I'm standing here before you today saying we need to have some other options. And also I feel a sense of equity, that I believe it's currently getting to the point of inequity for the students of Lebanon versus the students that go to Knowlton Elementary School in the 4-5 there, or I would say if you could have an option to look at some of the cottages that we have in North Berwick, the 4-5s that are there, or the 4s in the building actually, that even those are inequitable opportunities. We did have a plan to possibly look at a facility here called an Owl's Nest, but the facility study itself and the groundwork, the excavation, and some other project pieces that would have had to go along with that have just moved that price tag out of a realm of possibility. It was much cheaper for us to do in North Berwick than it would be to do here to build our own portables. As a matter of fact, Patty Gilly, Heather LaFrance, they're out of room. This is it. This is it. They'll say, yeah, we'll figure it out. I could give them a shoebox and they'd figure it out. But I know they're out of space. And so next year, you'll be seeing, I believe, we'll see how the budget process works out and board votes and so forth, but I believe it's most likely that in the front of this building, you'll be seeing or over behind Hanson, depending on the size configurations of the schools, you'll be seeing a Schiavi portable, some kind of portable structure that will help to alleviate some of the pressures on the facilities. So Neil's a guy that we rely on to provide us with options and their thinking points, and then the board has to take some action eventually. But like I said, it really is up to the public to make final determinations. So please understand, this is a starting point. This is not an end point. Before I finish up, I would like to say that I think Joanne Potter has some excellent history here in the school herself as a former student. You went through the 8th grade here? So, what grade? Oh, she only went to the 6th grade and then she left school. And I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood. So, no, this was only a 6th grade school at the time, K to 6? Ah, and then the junior high, which was, where was the junior high? Oh, was that the one that's the brick pile, or is that? Okay, looks like you might be the missing link to this. Yes?
I actually went first through 8th here.
And Becky is saying she went 1st through 8th here? You did not go 1st through 8th. Yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, as a mom of the 2 girls here in the district and 1 in kindergarten, I think to myself, will Paige have a new school by the time she comes over here? And so can you just elaborate a little bit more on what you think the timeline would actually be? I mean, I have a 3rd grader coming over next year.
It's about a timeline. What do I see? So I'll give you a rough timeline of what the Facilities and Finance Committee has presented to the board as a possible scenario, which would be a 5-year timeline, like starting from this year, because we also have to work within the cycles of the main bond bank, and there has to be a referendum that goes out to the public to support that bond. And when we do the bond, we also have to think about, what about the North Berwick project, what about the Huzzy expansion? Those should roll into that same bond. The really nice part for the district is that after 2020, the district will not have a facility loans. We won't have any debt service, excuse me, on the facilities. That's a great thing, but it's a bad thing too, because you don't qualify for much assistance that way. We take care, these communities take care of their business, and so you don't qualify after that. But then we have to go back and say, wait a minute, the state, $34 million with the high school at the time, and was approved in 97, 98. So, we're taking a look at a timeline that says, if we were to get a referendum put together to find out about bonds, if we were, certain things have to fall into place in 6-month sequences. If the board approves, if it gets put out to bid, if it meets bid specs and it comes in a reasonable range and so forth, if it goes from conceptual to very specific maps, then we've got something to talk about. And I would say my hope is if I were able to shepherd this through, would be a start to finish 5-year time span from this year forward to 5 years, a fall in 5 years, to be able to say there's the potential that a separate school could open up and that this could become a different kind of a space that Neil's going to talk about, maybe not the space people might be thinking of. So I'm going to say 5 years, but then if I do that, people are saying, see, it's a done deal. I'm just going to do, so I'll do like this, 5 years. Okay, all right. So now I'm going to just turn this over to Neil for a minute so that he can talk about what this concept is that I've been referring to. And then we're going to, Joanne will give some remarks, and then we'll take some questions too. Please don't forget those questions.
So yeah, what I've done is I've come up with a few different concepts, presented to the committees, and gotten everybody's input. This is the latest concept. It indicates what we think could happen with a new school put over here, set to the east of the existing, well, it's more to the north of the existing Hanson School. So that would become one, joined building. So we wouldn't have the two separate structures there would be travel between, be more centrally located. We've taken into consideration, some of the traffic issues that, if anybody has kids anywhere in the district, none of these schools were ever designed for a whole lot of parent pickup and drop off. I know I've experienced it myself. And so we're now taking that more into account when we're designing these schools. So like I said, this is a very rough concept of what it could be. One of the big things that we do have to get through is the Department of Environmental Protection. We have to go through and get it all permitted. As you can imagine, everything that was done prior to this was done before there were a whole lot of regulations. And now once we come through and modify a site like this, we want to come through and make sure that it's environmentally sound and we're protecting the resources that are surrounding the area. So this one, this is more just for for demonstration here. You can see a dotted line here, which is the outline of this structure and how that relates to a parking area that size that may or may not ever be built. It's just something that we've shown on here to show for kind of a scope. So like I said, a lot of this we're doing the background information on this now. We're getting the full existing conditions, information, getting all the wetlands, all the environmental things. We have a meeting with the DEP, the Environmental Protection Agency, next week to go over it and get their initial thoughts and make sure that going forward, any concept that we put forward to the town and the committees is something that is viable and it's something we could move forward with. If there's afterwards, I can take some quick questions on it, and I'll give out some of my cards if you want to give emails, or if you want to email Steve, we can get back to you with answers on things, just if you real general questions about what could happen. So if there are any questions now, I could answer real quick.
There's just a couple of pieces about this that are really nice. One is there's a standalone gym. So that frees up, we talked a little bit about freeing up the structure of the schedule. Yes, you want to, Vanna, could you? Yes.
Down here, we've got a full-size gym in this area, and this kind of connects through. For this one, we're trying, like I said, trying to make this more of a unified structure here. So it would connect through here, and then this would be a dedicated gym space instead of having to do a shared gym space. Like, this is a really inefficient way to do it. It's a good idea in theory to have a combined room, but then all of a sudden you're locked into using it for one or the other. You can never have two activities going on at once. So one of the big things is getting this big open space for our gym in here for activity, and then coming through and having a more modern structure, more similar to the Hanson School, so you'd be able to have two-story structure, more efficient, get more students, and more to the level that is needed for the community here.
I can just picture die-hard wrestling sitting at home, hopefully watching this at some point going, wait, did they just say a gym? And Joanne and I were talking about it. We think this could potentially be the first standalone gym in the Lebanon community. Is that possible?
It is possible.
This is the only community that does not have that. Okay, so this presents a lot of great opportunities. It would have an elevator in that portion as well, so to make the transportation back and forth between the schools much easier. It also would have, we were talking, what was the approximate number of, not holding you to it, but just in concept, the approximate number of classroom spaces?
I think we were looking at 18 classroom spaces. I went through and looked at it afterwards. That could be possible. It really depends on how some of the open spaces want to be utilized. If we go, going through with something like this is something that we'd contract out to an architect who has a lot of history in designing these newer, more efficient school structures. We'd kind of give them the concept and the footprint and say, this is what we're looking for. And then we'd kind of oversee the plan and get the town's input and make that all come to life here, within our constraints.
So another really good piece, please don't forget that question, all right? Another really good piece is that the time frame to do something like this is much shorter than to try to do some massive renovation to this building and move kids out while you're doing that. Where are we moving them to? It would be portable. It would be to another community. It would be, let's put the fifth grade over at Knowlton and Berwick. It would be, where's our openings? What can we do? So having this facility that could be built while the rest of the world is going on here, there's a great winning opportunity in that. So I think that there's a lot of upsides to this. Another piece that I didn't mention is where we don't have debt service after 2020 on any buildings, if the communities support the bonds that we're going to put, that we're going to put together for the 3 communities, all 3 elementary school, town elementary schools need some kind of additional spacing. If we were to do that, then that would mean that we would be getting close to a circuit breaker for the future of any other kinds of construction to be able to again qualify for the revolving renovation funds from the state and receive funding. When the high school was built, large with $34 million on state dollars, that was the most expensive building project in the history of the state of Maine. Have you heard of a city called Sanford? 90, David's going to say, you missed that number, Steve. David Theoharides, superintendent over there. I think it's 92 million, $94 million. Just a little bit more than Noble, just a little. And I've been over there. It's quite a facility. So I think and Neil, at your roughest estimate, what kind of a dollar figure were you talking about with us for this complete changeover?
I mean, it's always tough to to make an estimate without going through and getting a final set of architectural plans on things and going through the permitting. But something like this, we'd probably be putting in the $15 to $20 million range for the full the full build out and all the improvements.
So a little bit different price tag today than the high school or the high school in Sanford. All things are relative. You had a question. Oh, you have one too. Yes.
Just in general, is there a plan for, it looks like that new structure would be taking over the soccer field that is next to the Hanson School. So are we as well in that plan figuring out how to replace that viable piece of property for our schools?
You are a plant in the audience. I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot to. So the topic is, it's really about field uses, whether soccer or other sports activities. What if, if a school goes here, what happens here? Well, the school borders can go further back into the wooded area so that we would be reclaiming some of that use.
Afterwards, if you can come up and take a closer look, but it doesn't show real well on here. But there's a faint line here that represents the existing tree line there. And so This would propose to expand everything out. So it kind of, it doubled that field area back there, and that would kind of be regraded and try to transition that into a more engineered, and on my benefit there, field back there. So it wouldn't be an undulating field. It'd be an actual recreation field back there.
So adding more space and not doing away with the space here for use out back of this school here.
Correct. Yep.
So the school where we are now would be parking lot. There would be probably staff parking and overflow parking in the evening for events, and then keeping the little bridge intact. And we've also done some planning around making sure that we're setting ourselves up for that in the future. The two wells that are positioned fairly close to the road, I got news for you. If somebody tells you let's build a well close to a road, don't do it. It's called salt. So the two wells, one of them 600 feet down. Kevin, how far in the other?
Both 600.
Oh, both 600 feet down? They're dead at that point. We can't continue to use those wells. So we've had to have a study, DEP. We've had to have trees taken up. Kevin and Neil and I were going for a walk, and those were bad mosquitoes on that day. It was a hot day and lots of bugs. And we were looking out here at the wells. We're making sure as we do these initial things that we say, if these have to be done anyways, we want to make sure that it also provides future capacity. So it's not more, let's add more dollars into that cost. The septic system, the same thing. The water treatment system, the same thing. So as we do certain actions that have to happen anyways, we're ensuring that those are going to be in place if this were to become a reality. Next question?
It was the same question in the soccer field, so, but I guess there's still a little question because we help coach soccer, we know that area really well. There's power lines back there, there's wetlands back there. I mean, I'm assuming you're taking that into consideration.
Yep. What we've done here, this was, when you see this, I took a lot of the information off this just for presentation purposes. But we did, our survey team went out and they did determine where that back line was and how much space we had between, the power line property and the existing fields. So that's kind of represented on here. And as far as the wetland goes, we had just an initial determination of where that wetland cuts through here. And that wetland, a lot of it actually comes down closer to the road down here. And this is kind of, I think this is the area you're talking about here that gets sopping wet for the soccer fields there. And so that we'd actually be kind of building up on top of that and pushing it back towards this portion over here, which there's, you're probably aware of it too. There's some knobby areas out there with some ledge and things like that. So that's where, this would all be kind of built up and tried to make that, a drier, more usable space.
With much better drainage for when you have bad weather. What's the little building?
Which little building? Which, up here? Up here? Yeah, this is the existing playground that's going to remain back there. Yep.
Yes.
So I have two questions. One, can't you not build a wetland unless you make a new wetland? Like, so if you say build it up.
Right, and that's one of the things that's, there's a lot of different ways you can approach that with the DEP. That's one of the things, one of the things I do is permitting for our office. As far as like when Noble was built, they impacted like 30,000 square feet of wetland. And what the DEP does is they either have to say you have to save some wetland somewhere else, or you can impact a certain amount of wetland if you go through the right permitting for it. And that's kind of the initial comment I had about the permitting with the state, where nothing had ever been really permitted before. We want to go in and make sure that everything that we're proposing is something that they can go through.
If you went to Huzzy Elementary, to the right of the school is a little wooden bridge that leads out to a field. That is an offset for some of the property that was used at Noble High School.
Right. But you're still gonna have all that moisture, so like, what are you gonna do to prevent that moisture so you don't have that parking lot bubbling?
Well, that's something that we'd be engineering, the fill that we put in there, right, and get that drainage all working so that you don't have those issues that, we had back when people just filled in whatever they had to put in for parking lot and then paved it. not realizing that after 20 years, you can have all those tree stumps and everything rotting away. Yeah, it's so the the modern design of the parking lots kind of gets rid of that danger, and once we go through and get the DEP's blessing on the process from here on out, we'll be taking all that into account.
All right, and then as far as building for the future, so I know that you said there's 9 rooms down here, and you're hoping to make it 18, which sounds like a lot, but when you have 4 different groups of kids working in one room, those rooms are gonna go quick, so what is the plan to make sure you have enough for the future as people are continually moving into this town and bringing up our population?
That'll lob me a nice question. All right. So if you look down here next to where Duncan's is going to go on 202, there's, oh, thank you. What about, the question, part of it was about how many rooms we already currently have here, and what about future expansion of the town? So first of all, there's a couple of things that go in there. There's a certain percentage beyond what your what a study says your population expansion should look like, a future projection, so that the state would say they'll allow you to build. So you can't just say, well, we think we better have 6 extra classrooms or something like that beyond our current need. So you're allowed to build certain sizes. Secondly, we work very closely with the towns. We have a Google Doc that has people from the different towns, James Bellissimo over in Berwick, for instance, or Jen Griffin here, and they keep the doc up to date for me so that we can see exactly what's been permitted, what's been approved, what has been, where is ground been broken, what's already in, how many bedrooms are those, what is there an age limitation somehow on those of 55 and up, for instance. So we're getting we're paying attention to what's going on with the current building situation, and we're also going to be conducting a long-range study. The last study that was done was in 2000, I think 9, but by 2011 it was ineffective. The numbers, by the time I came in 12, I'm looking at the numbers going, this is off by like 400 kids. So you can never have enough information to inform that kind of a thing, but I'll be working with a group called NESDEC to do that particular study. So we'll take that into account, and as we're talking about here, conceptual presentation. If the project becomes a reality and you start to get into the specifics of it and the details, you take more and more of that information into account, and you adjust your plan as you go. Now, the reason that this is currently designed, this space, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you're 20,000 square feet or under, you're not required to sprinkle, as long as you have double firewalls and so forth. So there's certain conditions for that. So there's a natural break that you look at. What can you do with 20,000 square feet? But if 20,000 square feet is not going to be the project that's going to meet the needs, then we're going to talk about a 27,000 square foot facility or whatever it is, and look at, we understand that that's another $700,000 to $800,000 to do the sprinkle system in the building. So we're going to build based on the projections that are allowed by the state. Sound okay? Ms. B, you don't get a question. No, go ahead.
Okay, well, part of that's part of mine. The other part was in 2050, when
Yes.
towns become a city, is there a possibility of adding on to that, or have we kind of maxed it out?
So always, there's so many pieces to take into consideration. I'm sorry. 2050 is what's the potential at 2050 to add more to structures and so forth, depending on what happens with the population. Because we all know Lebanon is land rich, right? Plenty of land out here, good opportunities. So, and what's the zoning regulations? What happens there? And so anytime you have a good economy also, you tend to have a boom in building. So there's only so much we can do thinking how far we can take that plan. But as you build, sometimes you're looking for kind of like grandfathered opportunities that you make sure that you're, like if you have a single-story structure at one point, you make sure that it has certain building components in it that will allow it to have a second floor put on it in the future without, you have a certain girder system that allows your construction. The zoning, the laws will change about what's okay and what meets code and so forth, so there might have to be some changes, but you build with the future in mind. So that's the best I can tell you for by 2050.
My second question was, we talked about the fuel inefficiencies at the other school.
Fuel inefficiencies here.
Yeah, at here, sorry. What's the plan to maximize this as far as energy efficiency? Have you looked at that with geothermal or solar?
No, we haven't looked at any of that yet because it's still at that conceptual, at the conceptual phase. I'm glad you asked that. What if we're talking about geothermal? What if we're talking about solar panels? What if we're talking about passive, with glycol piping into, for water systems and solar panels and so forth? What's the next thing that comes along that's big on the market? Hey, let's go for cold room fusion. I'm in. What's going to happen next? Once this is approved, then we look for the most efficient way to prepare the school for the future. And Chip,
Impact consideration Martha Stewart Community Library.
say that one more time.
What's the impact or consideration for the library?
They are only going to be allowed to have, what's the impact on Martha Stewart Library? How about that? I remember to ask a question. They're only going to be allowed to have 2 books. No, actually, they're going to be big books, though. It's not an impact to the library. We're doing this with the idea in mind that there has to be access to the public for that facility. For instance, in this concept, where the library spacing is here, there's a bridge kind of catwalk that goes over a second story. So there's still access during the day to the library spacing or whatever their hours are.
I think that was the last one. Use a different one now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, scratch that one.
Yeah, no, in every concept, we've kind of been taking that into account. For this one that we're showing here, we're maintaining this, that parking lot that's in front of that library now, and keeping that as,
So that's right
it's, yeah, it's more of a separate space for library users and visitors. And then they still have the same access as they always had to the
I
library.
guess the bottom line is that there's still going to be that library, maybe in the current location, it may get moved depending on how everything works.
Yeah,
out,
that's,
but
yeah,
Still community flow.
yeah, the intent is to keep it there.
Yeah, we also realize that in the future as well, perhaps town hall might not be, I'm not sure about configuration, you might have a different idea on this. We know that this is a voting center, and we know that town hall might not be a big enough facility to create your voting center. If this was, might not be, I'm going with a might. I don't know, I haven't been downstairs yet. Okay, so we realize also that we'd have to be thinking about, so what's a flow and where is storage of materials and so forth. So we'll take that in consideration because these schools are the hub of the community, and we want to continue to serve that way. And there was another question, was there, hey, yes?
I just had a question. Did you, I might have just missed it, did you have an estimate on the square footage of the new structure?
An estimate on the square footage of the new structure. So if it's under 20,000 feet, if it were to be under 20,000 feet, it would mean certain things as far as cost goes. This one's more than 20,000. What are we talking about for this?
Depending on how much of it we bring up to a second floor on, we're probably looking in the vicinity of a 32,000 square foot building, or classroom areas.
As an addition.
Right. That's, that's total square footage, that's not a foot.
Yes, and the other thing is,
Footprint of the general construction.
Right, that's all the area you can.
and the other thing that will occur with that if it proceeds is that none of these spaces were built with the services in mind that happen in schools today. Response to intervention services, the Excel services, the breakout groups that we have, the testing services that we use, the computer services, the instruction that occurs. this facility was based on, you need this many classrooms, here you go. And so you, as you saw on the tour, we have in one room down the hall here, we have 5 services in the same room. That's a tight fit, yes.
Did I hear correctly that you said that Berwick and North Berwick are putting on additions?
So what we're going to be talking about from facilities and finance, Joanne, that's a good thing you're right there. Okay. Did you hear me say that North Berwick and Berwick schools, one of the Berwick schools might need future consideration as well? Yes, we're going to be looking at potentials for that. For instance, behind Huzzy, we've already presented to the Facilities Finance Subcommittee, and we've already presented in that committee to the board some basic ideas on that as well. There's shorter range plans, an addition for Huzzy. That facility is also maxed, maybe in need of a portable next year. We're looking at the long-range expansion of that too, over the next maybe 2 to 3 years. We're also looking at North Berwick Elementary has, it was never designed with people in an office in mind, conference space, globals or specials, whichever you want to refer to them as, spaces, a nurse's office space. I mean, none of those pieces, if you've been to North Berwick and just stepped in and looked at it, I'm not kidding you, the square footage of the principal's and the assistant principal's office combined is this space right here. Well, actually, it's about this space right here. So it's really, you would have thought, how did that design ever come to be?
I'm just wondering, timeline-wise, why this is kind of, is this more of a back burner, like Lebanon is just like ready?
No, we're talking, is this a back burner plan? No, we're talking about if you were to take on a plan, an action of this magnitude.
Because the condition, I'm just wondering because the condition of the facility here, why it's not kind of more on the forefront in the district?
It's not a forefront or back front. It's, we can bond multiple pieces together at the same time, and pass, there's potential to pass a bond, rather than trying to, well, this one was voted down by the communities, this one was voted up and so forth. And also, it's that those two are shorter time frames. This one just happens to be a longer time frame to go through the process as we started to get into it and learn about some of the time frames. I'll be honest with you, the main bond bank and their rate cycles and so forth, and when you have to get through them and then to be able to hit a referendum cycle for a June vote or something like that, how you hit that as well. Those things, they take longer to do. And we were offset a little bit by some of the projects that happened here that we did not know we were going to have to take on. For instance, just the wells. And she's talking about the size of the project. This is a much more, this is twice the project, 3 times the project of any of the others, because it involves an existing facility going away. It involves a whole new structure. We're not talking about additions.
But I mean, this isn't something that happened overnight. You guys are trying, not band-aid, but just trying to maintain the structure that's been here. I feel like it's something that we should be rolling a little faster because it's not getting any better.
So it didn't happen overnight, and we're not trying to band-aid. And how do you, I'm repeating. So, yeah. I think I'm repeating. I thought I heard that. And, rolling faster. We're going to move the project as quickly as we can, but it all comes down to the communities, too. So, some of it we have control over, some pieces we don't have control over. My start-to-finish timeline is like I really believe that it can happen within that cycle. Would I say that it's a good idea to open a school during a school year? I'm going to say that Sanford right now would say, boy, that's a tough thing to do. But then I was an elementary school kid walking down the street from one school to the brand new 8 Corners school in the snow with my books as a first grader, I think, walking into the school. Well, photographers are there saying, wow, look at this. That was a great day. I remember it today. It was only 10 years ago, though. All right, so I'm going to take one more question, then I'm going to say we're going to have to move. It's not an end of a conversation, okay? I'm not ending it. I'm just saying we're ending tonight's opportunity. And I'm going to turn it over to Joanne in just a minute. Last question.
So a major problem I feel with the school next door is the entranceway. So if you're making this parking lot bigger and further away, people, if they're parking in that bottom right parking lot, they have to walk out by the road, across all the way down the road and around to get to the front circle. Is there an option for another entrance?
So we're talking about parking. And what it's tough to get to right now. So first off, this parking, when you say people have to, I'm going to use a specific word, staff.
No, not
Staff.
even staff.
Oh, I'm kidding. I'm just,
Like
so,
parents are coming for activities.
no problem.
No,
No problem. So we're going to have overflow parking no matter what we do. But if you were to come up and get a close look after this tonight, what you would see here is that there is a traffic flow that allows people to come into this area, and we change from this drop-off with families.
Office would be in here.
The main office is in here, and the drop-off right here.
Okay.
Much,
Go all the way around.
much more efficient, much more efficient. We're with you. Okay, we're trying to solve as many of those issues as we can. So, right now, I'm going to say, Joanne Potter, you've got a little bit of history here. Yes. Look at the time.
I'm much better at wrapping things up than Mr. Connolly, so lucky you tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate it. This has been really an important project for us, and I love the school. My mom worked here. My mother-in-law worked here. Gladys Stewart's my mom, and Margaret Potter was my mother-in-law. And this is where we had town meeting, and if anyone remembers those fun times, boy, this was a rockin' place when we had town meeting. But even though those are great memories, we've got to keep in the forefront what's important for the kids, the students in the community, and also the community members, because like Mr. Connolly said, the school is really the hub of the community. And I would just love to see a gym where you couldn't throw from that and get into the basket over here. I mean, it's ridiculous how small this gym is, but we really will take our time and look at all the options, the pros and the cons of everything. And so I don't think you have to worry about us not doing our due diligence there. We realize how important it is to have a safe structure for our students, but also the importance it is to our taxpayers who've been very generous and helpful and always pass our budgets, which we're grateful for. And the last thing I want to say is that the three towns work really well together. We're always supportive, the Lebanon people are always supportive of the projects in Berwick and North Berwick, and they are right behind us every step of the way for the problems and the issues we have in Lebanon. So it's a really good group of people working together, and I think no matter what the decision is at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the best thing for everyone. So with that being said, may I say goodnight to everyone? Thank you, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate it, and we'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.